This appeal was prompted really because a friend of mine and I have realized the people who think they are perfect are not any more perfect than anybody else. There's in our church, there's always been this thing where there are the conservatives and then there are the liberals. So the liberals are very liberal with their love of a sort, but the conservatives, they want to love you by reminding you that the only way to be saved is by listening to God. So they are on the law. Um, Now, the problem is, I've met many good conservative people who loved God a lot. Most of them were in America, we were in a forum, and those people were truly not conservative, but just full of love for God. They cared about each other, they did good for other people. One was also was an adoptive father even before we had adopted. So that was true, full Christianity. And that is what I want to address today or now when I post this. The Christians who think they are Christian because they don't do wrong. There's more to it than just not doing wrong. There's It's about doing right also. So if you find the person who covers a head and wears long skirts and is always telling people you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't eat that, that is processed, this has got whatever MSG, and that kind of person, I've noticed that they're so obsessed with the minutiae of so-called obedience that they forget the weightier matters of the law, which is love to God, love to my neighbor. And we know through the story of the Samaritan, the neighbor is anyone who needs help. So we find then the people who don't give, or they give a little bit, so they can say, I did good. So they'll say, I visited an orphanage. Okay, that's nice. And then what else? What sacrificial giving did you do? That is where it then falls apart. You'll find the other person who says, no, don't you mustn't adopt because look at Tandy's children. Her children have issues and then you will also struggle. Whoa, whoa. What about all the people who have biological children who also have issues? I can bet you I can bet you my house that that same person who told people not to adopt has not told people not to have biological children. For me, that is a lack of love. So it's okay if they're yours and might be sick, but it's not okay if they're allegedly someone else's and might be sick. The only reason I would tell someone not to adopt is if they can't afford it. That is the only reason. So I wanted to speak to those Christians, the Christians who think they are Christian because they don't lie, I hope, they don't steal, they don't kill, they don't commit adultery, but they also don't do anything good either. While you are laughing at that Christian for, I don't know, wearing her miniskirt, God is wondering about you and the fact that you're not loving anyone. You're hating the miniskirt, sister, but you're not loving the homeless person. You're not loving the motherless child. You're not loving the widow in the church who needs a place to stay. But you're just empty of love. If you don't have money, you've got your body, you've got your time, you've got your mind. You can share your concerns about someone to others who might be able to help. Classic example, there's this young lady we know, I've known for many, many years, and she is not employed. Her brother is not employed, really. It's just piece jobs here and there, as we call them in South Africa. But even though she cannot give of her pocket, she still gives. I mentioned her before. When I was sick, she came and she loved my children better than any relative has ever loved them, or more practically, rather, than any relative has ever loved them. I do have a relative overseas who is overseas, so she can't come and love them as she would if she lived here. But she came and she was hands for me. She came when while I was recovering, she was caring for my children. She tried to sweep my house, and she's the one who even said to me, "Oh my word, now I see why you're desperate for a helper. This is too much. Your back will die if my back, as a young healthy person, could suffer. No wonder you need help." Even that, words of affirmation on their own are help. You don't need to give money to give affirmation. You don't even have to come from another province like she did. She came all the way from another province to help. Look at Jesus. He barely slept. He barely slept because people were always wanting him day and night. Children, adults, women, men, Pharisees, sinners. He was all about giving his attention, giving his energy, giving his prayers, giving his tears. I'm just begging you that if you honestly cannot give money, you cannot give clothing, you cannot give books, please give your energy, please give your time, your prayers, and your thoughts. I promise you, I can tell you this 100%. If you're doing it because you're motivated by love, then you're keeping the whole law. The law is love to God, love to man. That is the way to salvation. That is one step on the ladder. And now I hope that that will be a better or a fuller introduction to where I was going with my video, because I didn't really spend enough time on the giving that is not financial. And we didn't stop only with that one person. I mean, we don't stop once and say, okay, now we've given to everybody. We still give, even above our budget. And the thing is, God is good, hey? If we weren't giving, then we could afford all the fancy holidays, all the cleaners, the maids, the nannies, the babysitters. But that's not what life is about. Life is about sacrificing for the good of others. And the poor we will always have with us. And it is our responsibility to make sure that the poor know through us that God loves them. All right. See you soon. Because he knew not, he sought out. Job, if he didn't know of anyone who needed help, he went looking. He looked for the poor. He looked for the downtrodden, and he helped them. He kept his eyes pure. He did everything right. But he suffered a lot. But what I wanted to focus on today is the fact that he searched for issues, challenges, problems, and I wish I'd had that same mindset when I was less mature. Unfortunately, some of us, even in our 30s and 40s, like me, we don't ever mature. And I'm hoping that this will be, I don't know, not a challenge, but I'm hoping that you will get something from this. Because you're not a real Christian if you don't care for other people. God won't only say, remember what Christ said? When he said, you will come to me, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord. And he will say, but you didn't visit me when I was sick. You didn't visit me when I was in prison. You didn't clothe me when I was naked. You didn't feed me when I was hungry. Christianity isn't only about doing things that are, it's not only about avoiding the things that are bad. Christianity is also about doing the things that are good. And I believe that many of us here, this is where we fail. I'll just give examples from my own life. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Where, let's say, when I'm a guilty person. My friend and I, we were in university, so maybe we were 19. We visited a young mother. She had one child, and she was going through horrible morning sickness. She stayed at home, taking care of that one child. The sink was piled up with dishes galore. I can't say from how many days worth of dishes, but it was a lot of dishes for her and one little toddler. So it was obviously over many days. Her husband lived there with her. Her husband was there. And the floor was strewn with toys all over. And I went to give her a glass of water after she had puked. Her husband came in. She was vomiting and it's like, go check on her. And I'm thinking, there's nothing to check on. I know she's vomiting. I can hear her. My being there is not going to help her, unfortunately. But I didn't think of what could have helped. We didn't think to put the dishes away. We should have. The toys, babies, maybe the baby wanted the toys there, but we could have put those dishes away. She had told us that she was tired. Unfortunately, in the folly of my youth, when AS had not yet reared its ugly fatigue head, I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that she's been home from 7 a.m. alone until 5 p.m. and she couldn't even put dishes away? Really? But I should have put those dishes away. And yes, Mr. Husband also should have put those dishes away. And that's another thing that I wanted to add. Lots of men think housework is beneath them, but they live in that house. I don't understand that. You live in there. If you are a Christian man, then there's no reason for you not to mop, not to sweep, not to put the dishes away. That's what Christ would have done. He wouldn't just sit back. He didn't just sit back. He took off his robe, tied a towel around his waist, and washed 11 men's dirty, stinky feet. He definitely would have taken up a mop and mopped if he needed to. But our men, the men I know of, it's not the same. They will do one thing and act like they've given you the whole world. But anyway, that's another whole topic. But it is an issue. Men, sit down and ask yourself, am I doing everything that God would want me to do? I've spoken to so many women where, whether they work outside the home or work inside the home, they're constantly working. The man will come back and says, oh, I'm so glad it's the weekend. I get to rest. And the wife is thinking, okay, when do I get to rest? When do I get to take a break? Do as Christ would have done. When you are sitting there and your wife is busy sweeping and mopping and sorting out the laundry, really? How do you think God feels about that? I'm really asking the Christian men how they think God views them. Okay, back to my point, which was helping. We are meant to be God's hands. We are meant to see with his eyes. Where there's a need, we're meant to look for it and provide it, fulfill it. Where we're not sure, we're meant to make sure. So I'll give an example where, unfortunately, not only did people not find out if there's a cause or a problem, but they made things worse. And I want us, this is my appeal, let's stop making things worse. Let's use our mouths to build, to uplift, to edify, to bless, to bring joy, to bring happiness, to make a weary heart feel less burdened. That is what I would ask us before we talk, to think about. There was a couple there, and the woman, she started growing, and I could tell, oh, she's pregnant. Let's visit them, just because they just didn't seem to have many friends, and let's just ask them how they are. The woman's hair, the woman's hair made me think she doesn't have money. So we asked to visit them in their flat, and I asked for the toilet. And then when I went to the afterwards, I crept into the kitchen to see if there was any kind of food lying around. And then she followed me to say, are you looking for something? So I said, no, I wanted to see if you've got food. So we went and sat down, and that's when she told us they told us, she and her husband, that their finances were really bad. Their parents couldn't help pay. He was studying towards his PhD, and she couldn't find work. She's foreign, no papers. Now she's pregnant also. And they were poor. So poor that 3 times they had to ask their flatmate to lend them money for bread. Money for a loaf of bread, which they would then just eat dry. As if that's not bad enough, the one time she had climbed onto a chair to reach for something on a high shelf, and the next thing she knows, she's waking up. She had fallen. She had fainted from hunger, and their flatmate had found her begging for bread, and yet she was in an Adventist church. What happened to brother, sister, bear each other's burdens? Then, to make matters worse, the women, not all obviously, but the women were asking her why she is constricting her baby by wearing her normal clothes, why she isn't buying maternity wear, why she's killing her baby, why she's compressing her baby. Again, as always, it's the women. Men don't ask mean questions. I've never actually been asked a mean question by a man. I've never had a man say anything unkind to me. I mean, the closer men will be the ones who tell me, oh, you dressed so nicely. But the black women, you know what they are. They're the ones who ask, why did you do your hair so thin? Don't you want to combine your locks so they're thicker? Seriously? And so there she was. She is hungry. She has no food. If you just looked at her, you could have seen she was not okay. But instead you pick on her about clothing. And it's not that they said, do you have maternity wear? Oh, you don't? Let me go buy some. Or let me talk to the other ladies privately. So ladies, we've got a sister. I mean, we call each other sister and brother, but this family of ours is dysfunctional like many other families. None of them thought, let's give her maternity wear. And unfortunately, some of us are unaware, like me. I didn't think of being a help to that nauseated pregnant mother. I didn't think to put the dishes away. If I could think, and my husband could think, and see that these people need a visit, they need love, surely a whole church could have done the same. Do you know how much of a blessing you are when you give? And for those who are true-hearted, not narcissistic, the ones who are not entitled, they will remember that gift for the rest of their lives. I still thank the lady who gave, and I mentioned it before, who gave my daughter her first pairs of shoes, used. I don't care that they're used, just give it to me. If I need it, give it to me. Please, I appreciate it so much, and so will the other person. We're entering a new year. It's been a tough December for me personally. I still can't inject. I'm actually even tired of keeping my hand elevated, of soaking it, because really I don't see any difference. So I've stopped, but I'm not well. And what has kept me going is knowing that there are people who do care, people who constantly have said kind words. Kind words already are a gift on their own. They help nullify all the negatives I've heard and I keep hearing. Kind words are like water. You know, when you're parched for love and care, kind words are like just this drop of ice cold water, a cup, not even a drop. Your kind words will make a difference to someone. Not flattery, but just kind words. Checking up, telling someone you'll pray for them if there is nothing else you can do at all. Do that. It really will go a long, long way. And as Christians, it is our duty to do so. If you read Spirit of Prophecy, and actually I'll just go back to the Bible. God will not say, I didn't know you because you committed adultery, because you stole, because you lied. He will also say, away from me, I knew you not, because you didn't visit the prisoner. You didn't give the one who was hungry food. I'm asking you, Christians, please do what you can, where you can. 1 can of baked beans for someone who's hungry, someone who's fainting from hunger, will go a long way. You don't have to be rich to give. You really don't. God will provide. He really will. And I can give you stories from my own life. If you believe in angels or God speaking to you, I can say that God has spoken to us. There was a time in the UK when I was becoming really sick from the AS and the IBS, and I couldn't work anymore, but I still had my monthly bus ticket, so I went with my husband to go to his workplace, and it was just a menial job. And we were meant to be walking, the warehouse was on the side of the road, and then he said, let's cross. So he says he didn't want to tell me, but he heard a voice distinctly telling him, cross the road now. So we crossed over, and I found 20 pounds on the road. That was a lot of money for people like us whose rent was 425 pounds. And I mean, you could get these corn things, it's like vegan meat, for like $1.25. I think it was at Sainsbury. So 20 pounds was going to go a long way for us. God has provided for me. I mean, I'm not rich. I can't go on holidays, but I can take care of my children. I can feed them. I can't give them every single therapy I believe they deserve, but I can do what they need because He's kind. He's kind. And even though I give when it's so hard, and I'm thinking, man, we could really make use of that money. When I have to pay my doctor's bills late or my blood test bills late, I still give. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. But my point is, we can all sacrificially give. Not just give the extra can of beans, but give when it hurts. Giving when it hurts is just a small microcosm of how Jesus died on the cross. He gave, it hurt. It didn't even hurt, it was tortuous, but He gave His life. So for us as Christians to give, even though we might maybe tomorrow ourselves might just only eat that can of beans, it's nothing compared to what God did for us. And it's nothing to compare to how God will feel about us. Don't you want Him, as He says, is it Zephaniah, where He says He will joy over you with singing? I want God to rejoice over me with singing. So I will do what I can. It might seem little, but if it's more than if it's a lot in terms of sacrifice, God accepts that. If we are like Job, if we are looking for the people who don't have, and we're keeping the law, proud of us as He was of Job, and He will rejoice over us with singing. So that is my request. Give, give, give. If you don't have food, give your accommodation. If you don't have accommodation, give your words, give your thoughts, your concern, genuine concern. I appreciate all of that. I've received money, clothing, secondhand, I don't mind, and brand new at baby showers. I've received kind words. I received money to pay for my doctor's bills. They are all wonderful, and they all make me happy. And if I'm happy, God is happy because I'm His daughter. The poor person is there for God to see how we act, not for God to see how He will act in His poverty only, but what we will do for Him. And I hope that for those of us who are still closed, like I was when I was 19, I hope that 2024 will open our eyes and we will see where we can help with our hands and bless other people. Thank you. Have a good year ahead.